I just spent about two and a half of the worst hours of my life with M. Shaw. Thanks to you four.
Gold Rush has always been presented as a story of opportunity, ordinary people risking everything for the chance to pull life-changing wealth from the ground. Big machines, massive landscapes, and dramatic weigh-ins that decide whether a season was worth it or not. But what viewers rarely realize is how close this show came to disappearing completely, not once, but multiple times. Long before Gold Rush became one of Discovery's most recognizable franchises, it was viewed as a massive gamble. Mining is slow, unpredictable, and brutally expensive. There are no guarantees, no fixed schedules, and no certainty that anything valuable will be found at all. From a television standpoint, that makes it risky. From a financial standpoint, it makes it dangerous. In the earliest seasons, Discovery executives weren't convinced the format would survive. Ratings were unstable, production costs were climbing fast, and the crews being followed were inexperienced, disorganized, and constantly on the edge of failure. There was real concern that viewers would lose interest once the novelty wore off. And then the problems behind the camera started piling up. Mining looks exciting on screen, but the reality is long stretches of nothing. Days and sometimes weeks go by without meaningful progress. Machines break down constantly, weather shuts everything down without warning, and small mistakes can cost tens of thousands of dollars in a single moment. For television, that means long periods where nothing usable is happening, and that terrified producers. To keep the show moving, pressure increased on everyone involved. Miners were expected to work faster, push harder, and take risks they normally wouldn't. Producers needed conflict, tension, and high-stakes moments to justify the cost of filming in remote locations. That clash of priorities created friction almost immediately, and money only made things worse. Many fans assume the miners featured on Gold Rush are automatically making huge profits just by appearing on the show, but the truth is far more complicated. Gold totals look impressive on screen, but what's rarely discussed is how much of that gold goes right back into expenses. Fuel costs alone can wipe out massive chunks of revenue. Heavy equipment repairs are constant. Transportation, labor, land leases, and unexpected breakdowns add up fast. There were seasons where crews pulled gold from the ground, celebrated on camera, and still ended the year barely breaking even, or quietly losing money. That financial pressure pushed relationships to the breaking point. Arguments over leadership decisions became routine. Blame shifted constantly when things went wrong. Some crew members felt exploited, others felt trapped, and tensions escalated in ways viewers never fully saw. Cameras captured far more than what eventually aired, and not all of it was suitable for television. Several confrontations were cut entirely. There were moments when filming stopped not because of weather or equipment failure, but because situations had become too volatile. Emotional breakdowns, heated arguments, and private disputes were deemed too risky to include. Discovery wanted drama, but not chaos that could damage the brand or the people involved. At the same time, the physical toll of mining was becoming impossible to ignore. Long hours, extreme weather, isolation, and constant stress wore people down fast. Sleep deprivation became normal. Injuries were common. The mental strain of knowing that one bad decision could end the season, or worse, hung over every operation. Some miners began questioning whether continuing was worth it at all. That doubt spread quietly through the production. Behind closed doors, Discovery executives were reevaluating everything. Costs were rising faster than expected. The logistics of filming in such remote locations were becoming more complex, and the emotional strain on cast members raised serious concerns about sustainability. The question was no longer whether Gold Rush was exciting. It was whether it was safe, profitable, and manageable long-term. At one point, cancellation became a very real discussion, not as a rumor, not as online speculation, but as an internal conversation. The show had potential, but potential alone doesn't keep a network invested. If the risks outweighed the rewards, Gold Rush could easily have been replaced by something simpler and cheaper. What ultimately saved the show wasn't just gold totals, it was the struggle. Viewers weren't tuning in just to see success. They were watching failure, pressure, and desperation unfold in real time. They connected with the setbacks, the exhaustion, and the moments where quitting seemed inevitable. That rawness turned out to be the show's greatest strength, but that authenticity came at a cost. As seasons went on, the stakes only increased. Expectations were higher, mistakes were less forgivable. The pressure to perform, both as miners and as television personalities, intensified. For many involved, Gold Rush stopped being an opportunity and started feeling like a trap they couldn't easily escape. Success on screen didn't always mean stability off-screen. Relationships were strained, trust eroded. Some people walked away quietly, while others pushed through despite burnout and frustration. And through it all, Discovery kept the cameras rolling, capturing just enough to tell a compelling story, while leaving much of the real damage unseen. Gold Rush survived cancellation, but it was never the simple success story it appeared to be. What viewers saw was a carefully edited version of reality. What they didn't see was a production constantly balancing on the edge, financially, emotionally, and creatively. And even now, that balance remains fragile, because behind every big gold weigh-in is a risk that never truly disappears, and behind every successful season is a question Discovery still has to ask: how long can this really last? What makes Gold Rush even more unstable is that success actually creates new problems. When a season performs well, expectations skyrocket. Bigger gold totals are demanded. Bigger risks are encouraged, and the pressure to outperform the previous year becomes relentless. What once felt like a risky opportunity slowly turns into a non-stop chase to stay ahead. As the show grew, so did the scrutiny. Every decision made on site was no longer just about mining, it was about optics. Miners weren't only answering to their crews anymore, they were answering to a network, an audience, and a schedule that didn't care about weather, breakdowns, or exhaustion. That shift quietly changed everything. Mistakes became less tolerable. When equipment failed, it wasn't just a financial loss, it was lost screen time. When progress slowed, it wasn't just bad luck, it was a problem for production. That constant awareness altered how decisions were made. Some risks were taken sooner than they should have been. Some problems were pushed aside instead of fixed properly. And some choices were made simply because the cameras were rolling. Over time, the line between reality and performance started to blur. There were moments when miners continued working not because it made sense, but because stopping would look like failure. Pride, pressure, and expectations collided. The same grit that viewers admired on screen often masked how close people were to breaking down behind it, and the isolation made everything worse. Remote locations meant limited contact with the outside world, long stretches without family, little relief from stress. When tensions flared, there was nowhere to escape. Conflicts simmered longer, frustration built faster, and small disagreements could explode into full-scale confrontations. Some of those moments never made it to air, not because they weren't dramatic, but because they crossed a line. Emotional collapses, intense arguments, and moments of genuine despair were quietly left on the cutting room floor. Discovery had to protect the image of the show, even when reality became uncomfortable. Meanwhile, viewers kept demanding more drama, more stakes, more gold. And that demand fed the cycle. Each season had to feel bigger than the last, each setback had to feel more devastating, and each success had to feel harder earned. What started as documentation slowly turned into expectation. By that point, walking away wasn't easy. Contracts, finances, and public perception all played a role. Leaving the show didn't just mean stepping away from mining, it meant walking away from visibility, income, and identity. For some, Gold Rush became the thing they were known for, whether they wanted that or not. And that's where the real trap formed. Success locked people in. Failure threatened everything, and the margin for error kept shrinking. Even today, the future of Gold Rush is never fully secure. Mining remains unpredictable, costs continue to rise, and the pressure to deliver compelling television hasn't gone away. The show survives because it constantly walks the edge, but that edge is exactly what nearly destroyed it in the first place. Gold Rush was never just about gold. It was about endurance, about how long people could keep pushing under impossible conditions while millions watched. And the truth is, the danger of cancellation never fully disappeared, it just became part of the gamble. Because in the world of Gold Rush, striking gold doesn't mean you've won. It just means you've earned the right to risk everything all over again.